That was a little line. My clap is bad, but it's still there. So
As long as I hear 2 claps, and I'll know the second one is the one that lines it all up.
Go Cubs! You could see a doctor if your clap is bad.
damn it, Anthony.
I don't get it.
It's a
sexually transmitted disease.
Is that gonorrhea or is that something else?
Sorry, sexually transmitted infection. I think that it is gonorrhea. I don't know why I feel like I'm confident in my knowledge of diseases.
Hey Siri.
But...
Oh God, guys.
Gonorrhea.
You wish it was gone, Aria.
I had diarrhea, but now.
Why does gonorrhea rhyme with diarrhea?
Is gonorrhea the clap?
And why does all of it rhyme with cafeteria?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's either gonorrhea or syphilis. Yeah, it's gonorrhea.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, it's gonorrhea.
Okay, it is gonorrhea.
It sounded like she
Siri
said
also-
gonorrhea, which sounds really fancy.
Siri also pronounced gonorrhea like, or she pronounced STI
I don't
as
know why
sti.
it's called a clap.
Steve.
Steed.
I feel like gonorrhea sounds like somewhere like rich white people go for vacation. I was vacationing with my cousins on the coast of gonorrhea, like that kind of.
You know, chlamydia would be a pretty name for a girl if it wasn't an STI.
God damn it. All right.
Just call her Lydia, and then when she's old enough, be like, you know why you're named Lydia, and then she'll really hate you.
Hey, little Timmy, what's your favorite intro to the Gaming Coop? I love when they talk about STDs for a long time. Welcome to the Gaming Coop, the best space to talk about spooky video games. Let's introduce today's players. Player 1. Hi kids, here's a treat that is easy to make and fun to eat. You'll need some large marshmallows, chocolate syrup, a chocolate bar broken into squares, graham crackers, and a toothpick. It's Kelsey.
I love that.
Wow.
Whoever wrote that knows me.
That is
Wait, isn't that from
that
Scary
is a
Godmother?
deep cut. Yeah, it is.
Slightly insulted
Holy
over large marshmallows, but it's fine.
Player 2 is half possessed animatronic, half zombie hunter, and half spooky scary skeleton. It's Gabe. Hi, Gabe.
Okay, that one might. Okay. No, it's just. I'm not doing zombie hunting today.
There's a lot of layers to it. It's fine. Player 3. Do you smell that? It's the peanut butter corn chips. Or maybe it's just Matt.
What? What?
Player 4. Did you know that they did surgery on a grape? It's Walsh. Player 5 is a lovable monster filled with energy. It's Anthony.
That's true. That's all true.
Finally, Player 6. Right around this time of the year, when the leaves turn and the air is crisp with the smell of bonfires and apple cider, hushed voices around the campfire tell tale of a man who loves football just as much as he loves mozzarella. Meet the one and only Chris. That's me.
It's very descriptive.
Welcome, everyone, to the spooktacular edition of the Gaming Coop. I hope you are excited to. So I will say, we have 6 games on this list. I don't think any of them would necessarily fall under the horror genre, but they all have those spooky, Halloween-y, fun vibes that can get you in the mood for this holiday season. And we hope some of you can relate to the games that we talk about, and if you have any Halloween-y games that you would like to add into the conversation, make sure to tweet us with the hashtag #TheGamingCoop, and we will be there to retweet you, of course, if you use that hashtag. But with that being said, let's go on to game number 1. Kelsey, you have the floor for Bioshock.
Okay, I have like 3 things to say before I get to Bioshock, if that's okay.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, first you said weenie.
Did I?
When you said Halloween, you said weenie.
Oh, damn. Okay.
I enjoyed that. So then the second thing is, I think that the reason that none of us have an actual horror game is because, I don't know, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I can't handle horror games. I like horror movies, but the concept of having to like that's just happening passively and I'm consuming it. But like if I had to actively engage in something that's horror, I played like 3 seconds of one of the Resident Evil games and then proceeded to just sit in a chair, handed the controller to Anthony, and like just watched him play it for me because I couldn't handle it. So I don't know. I think that Gabe and Anthony play actual horror. I don't know if anybody else does.
I certainly do not.
Yeah. And then third, I have a fun fact.
Yes.
Did you know that the ending phrase "Rhea," like as in RRHEA, that is used at the end of many common words, means like heavy and aggressive discharge?
Oh.
Whoa.
That is very apt to what we talked about before the podcast.
So like
started.
it's used in phrases like gonorrhea and diarrhea, but it's also used for the phrase like logorrhea, which means somebody who like has aggressive and uncontrollable speech that just comes out of their mouth, like just they can't stop talking. Like when you say diarrhea of the mouth, it's actually called logorrhea.
Logorrhea. Okay, that makes sense.
So I just felt like sharing because I found it out. Anyway,
I feel like
Bioshock.
I have logorrhea when I host podcasts because I don't know.
I have logorrhea when I have too much coffee.
You see, that word just like rolls off the tongue and splatters all over the floor.
Oh God. Okay.
Well,
Kelsey,
it is
please
horror.
go for it.
Let's talk about video games.
This shout out goes out to all the people whose last names end with Aria. You know?
Right.
Yes, it goes all of you that represent the name of Discharge.
Yes. Fantastic. So I'm so glad we got there. I'm talking about Bioshock. So for Bioshock, I was trying to figure out what really unnerved me about the game. It's not the only game that's unnerved me in this way, but there's parts of it that are, in my opinion, like inherently spooky or scary. So like some of the enemies in the game. For context, when I first started playing Skyrim, I was absolutely freaking terrified of the wolves. And if you're somebody who has played Skyrim, they are like not really an issue. Once you actually start playing the game, they are like not really an important, they're pestering, but they're not like terrible enemies in the game. But I can't handle when things come at me from a direction I can't see right away and are like aggressive or violent inherently without me doing anything. So in Bioshock, you first hit these enemies that are just like terrible and creepy and scary, and they will come at you violently. So I don't like that, and that to me is a very horror element. But I think that more so what bothers me about the game, and not bothers, this is one of my favorite franchises ever. I don't really talk about the third one because I was upset with it, but especially Bioshock 1 and 2 are some of my favorite games I've ever played, is its ability to feel like it's this. So it's essentially, the main character was modeled after Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged. So the character is modeled after this like idea of this kind of like objectivism, laissez-faire capitalist kind of ideology. So when you play the game, it's Andrew Ryan becoming disgruntled with the religious and governmental control over the capitalist systems in the United States. By becoming disgruntled over that, decided to take his money that he earned within the capitalist structures of the United States and built this underground world called Rapture, in order to create a city within his own image that was without the interjection of government and politics and religion within the affairs of his city. And so it kind of is representative of this almost like it's this underground like utopia that is supposed to function as this perfect world that Andrew Ryan created. So that's all well and fine until things aren't fine and things go awry, and it slowly kind of devolves into this civil war, and then Andrew Ryan loses, sort of, and then wins the civil war, but he's become like a psychologically broken recluse, and things just crumble from there. So it's this utopian state that ultimately ended in a dystopia. And I don't like... So I posed to Anthony a question before we came on, and I was like, would you rather live in or experience a utopia or a dystopia? And he, like, almost instantly was like, a utopia, obviously. That would be potentially the right answer. And I disagreed, because I feel like utopias are inherently built to fail. Like, I feel like they just can't be, and that's why they're called utopia. The actual world, the word itself, is both, like, a good place and then also, like, non-existent. It's nothing that we can achieve. But I feel like if the wrong person tries to create a world in their own, what they feel is right, and in their own image, it is inherently built to fail, in my opinion. And this game captures that very well. And it is terrifying, in my opinion, because it is something that is not necessarily completely out of reach for our current society. And it's very, like, dark and existential if you look at it that way. But that, to me, games that are psychological warfare in that respect, and experiencing things that are, to me, something that's terrifying is losing the ability to just live in your world, right? And I think that's something that's very sensitive, at least to me, from this past year with the pandemic and having things alter so greatly. But I feel like that is like the peak part of the game that's unnerving, is that you're navigating this world that was supposed to be utopia, that is now very dystopian, is riddled with violence and crime and drugs and a very broken society trying to survive underneath this crazy leader and creator. And I feel like it mirrors how I feel about society a little bit. And so it's like it's currently so in that respect, I think that it's a very, like, it's not horror, it is not a horror game, but there's horror elements in the, like, gameplay and in the enemies. But then I also think that on a larger scale of being somebody who thinks about things very existentially, it is one of those games. The only other game that ever compared in that regard was Horizon Zero Dawn, and the essentially environment of the game and how it came to be is extremely, in my opinion, similar to somebody being given or seizing too much power, doing what they think is right or inherently best in their own image, and then it going very, very wrong. And so I feel like I'm a little sensitive to that concept, because I feel like that's what I'm fearing most in our current world happening. So that is why I chose it as, like, a scary.
Well, yeah, it's like, it's horror in the sense of, like, it's realistic. Like, that's
exactly the kind of horror. Like, I'm not somebody who's first of all, I hate zombie things. I hate zombie things. I'm so over it. I'm not into vampires or monsters or anything like that. Like, it's just not stuff that's not the kind of movie I'm going to watch if I want to be scared. I'm going to watch the one where somebody breaks into your house and is hiding in the hallway and you can't see them, but they're there and they're going to do something wrong. Like, that's the kind of, I'm more of like a thriller type of person. So, like, these to me are psychological thriller games that unnerve you and upset you.
No, I always think about, especially in terms of movie genres, like, if you want, like, a kind of cheaper scare, you turn to a horror movie. But if you want to be, like, a little bit like actually kind of more terrified, you reach to a thriller, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. And I think that kind of goes to why a lot of us chose the kind of games that we did, where I guess the ones that more have horror aspects to them without them necessarily, you know, the first genre being horror, is they use horror elements in order to unnerve your players very well. Because the things that I've seen of Bioshock, it is, you know, it can be a kind of a very dark but, like, survivalistic kind of experience. And so I think my question is, in terms of the Bioshock, I guess the first one, what kind of gameplay is it? Because I am not as familiar with Bioshock.
So meaning like on a technical level, like a
I know like it's first person.
Yeah.
But like, is it something like you kind of have to survive and like keep your resources, or is it like you're trying to get from point A to B, or are there objectives or?
So when you open up, so the very first Bioshock opens up where your plane has crashed into an ocean, and the only thing that you can get to that is immediately nearby is a lighthouse. And when you enter the lighthouse, it is decorated and has inscriptions on the walls of Andrew Ryan's vision of rapture, or things that speak to it. You then go into a biosphere and you're plummeted into the ocean, and you travel through the water to get to a point of rapture where you exit. But along the way, a radio transmission comes through, and you're working with this man named Atlas to try and get to a destination that's going to be a safe space for you, in theory. That's what you're being told. So, when the bathysphere lands, I think I might have said biosphere at first. It's a bathysphere. Lands in Rapture, and you come out, you're faced with an initial enemy where it's these people who lived in Rapture, and they were regular people that moved to Rapture, human beings, but there was the introduction of plasmids, which altered your genetic state and allowed you to do things like telekinesis and fire and electricity. And so over time, though, it erodes who you are, almost like a drug, like say a heroin or something, that you feel great by taking it, but it's over time destroying who you are, either mentally or physically. So then the people that are left, I forget, Anthony, what's the name of the enemies in the game? What are they called? Splicers, right. So splicers are these creatures that are kind of left behind. They're the shells of the humans who have abused the plasmids, where they are now so far gone that they are like erratic, crazed, violent creatures that have now become so addicted by the plasmids that they are like permanently transformed. You can use plasmids throughout the game, and that's kind of like your special powers throughout the game, because you can take different plasmids and then have those abilities that the plasmids offer you. But you can also fight with melee weapons and guns, and you're essentially trying to get from point A to B within the games. I'd say it's fairly linear. It's not like, I don't think it would really be considered open world. I think it's pretty, like, you can do I think you can do little side quests before. I forget, actually, if you can do side quests before the main mission. But I think for the most part, it's like one main mission that's propelling you forward. You unlock different parts of it, and you're essentially trying to survive and finish out the game with bosses and trying to help people you might find along the way, or trying to solve mysteries. And each instance, so like that's Bioshock 1, but each following instance of Bioshock, you're a new character within Andrew Ryan's world and starting a new mission with a new set of goals at that point.
One thing that's that one of my favorite, I guess, twists that happens in Bioshock, and I won't say exactly what it is, but it's a twist that kind of plays on how a video game works.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find out that it's a twist at the end, it blows your mind. Do you know what I'm talking about, Kelsey?
I'll
type it.
Yeah, send it to me.
You'll
I don't
know
remember. Oh, yes. Yeah. So from my first playthrough of that, I had forgotten that was a thing. And without spoilering exactly what's going on, what Matt is essentially saying is that in the game, there is something that you experience over and over and over again, and you have no clue that it is like affecting who you are and what you're doing until the end of the game. And it's revealed to you. And it's kind of like, oh my God, like I had no idea that was even going on. But it's really what's the most, I think, interesting part of it, and what's kind of, again, speaking to the scary, realistic type of thing, is that so much of it is, like I mentioned earlier, based off of like Ayn Rand's writing, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, and these concepts of anti-communism, laissez-faire capitalism, and kind of this like this psychology of you are your own moral guide, and you need to do what's in your best interest, and the rest of the world will figure itself out. And that is a very dangerous concept in the hands of certain people. So like that, and like I think that it's something that is extremely possible to see in our lifetime be executed, and that I think is what's so scary.
Yeah.
I would just say, just because I've seen gameplay of Bioshock, and I don't think it from a gameplay perspective wouldn't completely interest me, but I adore games that take a leap into political commentary without, of course, like being like very heavy-handed. Well, I guess not heavy-handed is not the right term, but like being very specific about it. Like I enjoy when they can take themes that are impacting society and turning into a game that can really like make you think about like, my God, like this is what like you've been saying, Kels, like this is stuff that may not be so that far-fetched. I mean, beyond like the monsters in Bioshock, you know, like that like, maybe that's maybe the one unrealistic element of it.
Well, I think that if they made it too literal, they would just be like, play this game, it's called America, and then like move on. Like that would be like, exactly. Like they can't like, they need to have some sort of fantasy element to it. But I would say that anybody who feels the same way as you, that they would get a huge kick out of the Bioshock series, and even play it through the end of the third. I mean, the third game wasn't my favorite. They kind of took a different turn for it that I didn't appreciate. But that, and like I said, Horizon Zero Dawn, I think is heavily riddled with political commentary. And worth playing, definitely.
Yeah, I might pick it.
Sweet.
Go ahead, Gabe.
I have a question. Is this the same game where you can shoot bees out of your hands?
So I don't want to say no, but I don't explicitly remember that.
I think that's what's the one game where it's like you're an assassin.
Is that Far Cry?
Assassin's Creed?
No, not Assassin's Creed. It's like Dishonored or something.
Hey, that's my game.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I'm talking about that tonight.
Okay, is that the one where you can shoot bees out of your hands?
No, but Gabe is right. There's a section in Bioshock. The bee power isn't like one of the best powers, so it's not very memorable, but it is kind of funny. And that you shoot bees and people are just like, oh God, oh, ow, bees.
Just like completely unnecessarily. It's great. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Bioshock?
Yeah, I didn't remember the bee thing just because I didn't recall it as something that was like largely important. But that's funny. I feel like I have to uncover it again.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just the absurdity of someone shooting bees out of their hands.
Well, and I kind of love that too. Like, I love when a game is absurd also. Like, I think that it's like, I love when people play with that too. Another element of the game that I just want to throw out as something that's a little creepy too is there's so many things that you come up against repetitively that are like and creepy but aren't meant to be creepy, but they're just creepy because it's within that sphere of it. Is like the vending machines that you come across. They're like circus themed, and they're like, welcome to the circus of values. And every time you might come into a room and expect an enemy, and instead that gets triggered and you jump because it's like you don't always anticipate it being there. So it's just things like that make the entire vibe of the game is really spooky and not inherently horror, but just definitely spooky.
I love it. I like be weird and be existential.
Yep.
might be the theme of the night.
And bees in your hands.
All right, next up, we have a little bit more of a lighthearted game. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, at least in the art style, it's a little bit more lighthearted. It is Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
No, and the Blind Forest.
Oh shit, that is my bad. And the Blind
language.
Forest. I apologize. Ori and the Blind Forest. Go hit us with it, Gabe.
I have not played Will of the Wisps yet, so I'm looking forward to it. It's just
yes. Apologies. I think I might have written down. Okay, I accidentally went to the Wikipedia page for Will of the Wisps instead of Blind Forest, so I apologize about that.
Oh, that's
yes, we're in the Blind Forest.
Okay. I wouldn't call Ori and the Blind Forest lighthearted. It kind of deals with kind of serious topics, but in terms of art style, yes, it's more lighthearted. It's just it this the story is really good.
Okay, so what is it about?
Okay, so in Ori and the Blind Forest, you play as Ori, a I guess I'd call them a fae creature, but like they're mainly just a light construct born from the spirit tree, which is the thing that gives all the land that you go through life and what makes it flourish. But one night during a storm, the spirit tree loses all of its leaves, and Ori, being the last one, was blown away, and the spirit tree eventually died off. Ori was taken into care by a what I'm not sure what they are exactly.
I don't know how you would describe it, honestly.
By a mother.
There you go. That
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
And Ori is raised up to, I'd say, like late adolescence to early adulthood, something like that, before the mother dies due to the land dying as a result of the spirit tree losing its life, and they eventually run out of food, so the mother starves to death trying to feed Ori.
Jesus Christ.
After
I take back what I said about lightheartedness.
yeah. After a while, Ori goes exploring to find food, and then they get attacked by what is considered the scourge of the land, Kuro, which is a big old black owl. Essentially, yeah, it's just a big old black owl. And Kuro's motives are to keep the land shrouded in darkness because light kills it. So it wants to live in darkness and keep everything just dead. But Ori can't have that happen because if they want to live and bring everything back to normal, they're going to have to restore the light to the forest. So after that, the story just kind of continues throughout the game. You have to find three elemental things in order to restore life to how it was. And you have to go through 3 different locations, one being a tree that lets water flow through everywhere, one being I don't know how you describe it, like is thicket a word? Like, I don't know, just an area where fog shrouds everything, and it makes everything all random and stuff. You have to go through set paths, but it's random the way you go. And then you have to go through a mountain, and a mountain that's about to explode. So you have to collect all these things in order to restore life back to the spirit tree. And I won't say how the ending goes if you ever want to play it, but it does lead directly into the sequel, Will of the Wisps.
Okay. I just for my what I've always looked at Ori and have always wanted to play it. I've seen like E3 showcases with Ori involved with it, and I just get like the game just seems very sentimental from the moment like the first footage begins to roll for it, and hearing that plotline makes it even more more like emotional in a lot of ways. It's a kind of that game that I like to, because I'm not like big on 2D stuff, 2D platforming, but I do love Metroidvanias, which I know this game is very like kind of go from area to area, map your area, like map you like be able to look at a map and kind of like navigate things. Or I don't even know if there's a map system in the game, but
there is.
Oh, there is. Okay, cool. So like being able to kind of like know where to go in order to progress through the game. Like I enjoy those like non-linear type exploration that the game seems to provide. Any thoughts on Ori and the Blind Forest from everyone else?
Yeah, I just want to say, Kelsey and I watched the trailer for it and we cried. like actual sobbing. Like it was very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Like it didn't pull any punches. Very emotional.
Like,
Existential.
Yes,
Aggressively emotional.
existential. Yeah.
um, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
From the very beginning, like, the game is gorgeous. The music is so good. Every like there's a few events in the game that just are so impactful that like it's just so good. The music and the visuals just bring everything together on top of an already excellently designed game. Like, there was a time where I died like 40 times trying to get past this one segment, but I had to keep going because the music was just so energizing and effective, and like just the weight of everything is just so good.
Yeah, I've heard that it's a very difficult game, but I guess it's kind of interesting because everything surrounding it kind of inspires you to keep pushing past it. Is that correct?
Precisely.
That's wonderful.
The game is so hard. Even playing on normal difficulty. Right now I'm on my second playthrough, and it's on hard mode, and right now I'm kind of struggling, but that's because I'm bad at video games. To be honest, I didn't even know anything about Ori until I played Rivals of Aether. It's like a Smash kind. It's inspired by Smash, but I first saw Ori through Rivals of Aether as a DLC character, and then I was like, what's this? And it wasn't until very recently where I got the game because Matt.
Because I told you that you would like the game,
Yes,
and I was right.
Exactly. And I played it, I loved it, and I just love it.
Matt, you've played the game?
I saw Let's Play a long time ago, back when like it came out. I don't know what year it was, but
Okay.
I watched someone play it a while ago, so I know what the game is like.
Okay.
Same comments. It's beautiful. It's challenging. It is not an easy game to get through, platforming wise.
Sure.
And then but the rewards at the end of it are so worth it.
If there's one thing I would say about the game, it's that the ending is a little abrupt, but that's it. That's literally the only noticeable flaw that I have for the game.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is that there is it kind of, if it is abrupt, it leads there's war to the game because of Will of the Wisps. Like, that's that kind of helps like continue that story. I guess I'm totally guessing. I don't know much about it. One of the reasons it does make sense that you would like this game too, though, Gabe, because I think about it. I think about how much you love Kirby games. And we've bonded over Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, which is my first experience of a Metroidvania. And that's like up there with my favorite Kirby games. So this is kind of like obviously it's those are two very different games still, but like it kind of it makes sense for someone that loves a platforming game that this would be right up your alley.
It just hit every mark that I consider to be an amazing game.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts on Ori in the Blind Forest?
I'd say it's pretty general synopsis covered.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for sharing. All right. Next up, we will move on to a little bit more of another adventure game here, Night in the Woods.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to qualify what genre this game is.
Yeah, I was gonna. It says adventure game on Wikipedia, but I'm like, it could be various things.
You don't like it's 2D. You platform around, but the platforming isn't the challenge of the game, nor is the game a challenge at all. It's a quaint, very story driven game about a 20-year-old college dropout who returns to her hometown of Possum Springs to find that everything has changed while she was gone. There are a ton of themes it explores on the subject of mental illness, on the subject of LGBT issues, on the concept of how big business and capitalism ruin the kind of the general feeling of small towns and the goodness that they can have, and so many other things that I would hate to spoil. But I'll explain some of the characters and what they're like, because the characters are really important to the overall feeling of the story. May is the I sent a picture out to all of you. May is a cat. She's 20 years old. You see the whole world through her and how she interacts with things. And at one point in the story, she sees a ghost kidnap a kid, and that kind of sets the more supernatural parts into motion of the story, and everyone not believing her that it's a ghost, and her trying to prove that a ghost exists, and that second half is what is the spooky, the tense part of the story. The other characters, the fox there is Greg. He is May's best friend, childhood best friend, and is super excited when she gets back. B is the crocodile. She was May's friend when they were a lot younger, but they've kind of grown apart, and is in a different spot in her life than May is. Angus is the bear. He's Greg's boyfriend, and is very scientific, very analytical, not spiritual in any way, which really gets in the way of the whole ghost thing at the end. And it's interacting with all three of them that kind of bring the story and bring the world together. And the cool thing about it is that every day you explore Possum Springs and get to do different things about just on and about the town, and you get different dialogue and different outcomes depending on what you do. There's kind of two routes throughout the game, one involving Greg and one involving B, where you get really close to one of the two of them, and even a different ending depending on who you have the final conversation with, depending on which character you get close to. So there's a lot of replayability in that regard. Any questions about it?
Greg rules, okay?
Greg rules, okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, was somebody else going on?
I have like little underground thoughts, but you go ahead.
So when you said in the beginning, did you say something about it being like you mentioned something about like a socioeconomic or like a political commentary?
Yes.
Can you just like restate or clarify that?
Yeah, so so Possum Springs is a very small town, rural Pennsylvania town that has been greatly affected by a lot of big business development, and you see that in small instances where the local food store, grocery store had to close because their equivalent of a Walmart moved in by the highway. You see you constantly see their little like board of tourism around town trying to figure out how to get more business happening in Possum Springs to no success.
So you definitely would say that
things like that.
Yeah, that part of the like vibe or mood of the game is that there are underlying anxieties and tensions just for living, like just for being alive in the state of the way that things are. That there is like, to have to be alive is to have anxiety or upsets that just are little microaggressions in your day-to-day life. And that's probably, we can all feel that way depending on how you feel about the state of things. But then, as you said, for like the LGBT community, you live every day feeling othered and
right.
Having that underlying anxiety of, at any given turn, you may not be accepted or not be able to just live as who you are. So I think that that's a really great, it seems that there's layers within the game of making sure that the player is feeling all those things.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from the fact that May has been away from college. May hated being in college. It wasn't for her. It put her in a terrible mental state, and she had to come home. But now home isn't how she left it. So
Right.
that part of the uneasiness. Angus and Greg there are the only LGBT people in town other than May, but May was gone for so long. So Angus and Greg are actually, you find out they're saving up to move to what I believe is their equivalent of Philadelphia. They call it Bright Harbor, but it's
Yeah.
ocean town, lots of people.
Yeah. It sounds to me like it's the epitome of a quarter life crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's probably the market to which the developers were probably targeting. And
Absolutely.
so it sounds like they did a very good job. And it sounds like something I probably would not play right now because I myself am having a quarter life crisis and wouldn't want to but it sounds like a really great, that they did a really good job with narrative and conveying those emotions to the players.
Yeah, and what you said earlier too about just in general anxieties feeds into the final plot when you find out what's really going on, kind of underneath Possum Springs.
Okay, very cool. I like it.
Yeah. Chris, did you have?
Yeah, I've that I've played a little bit of it. I was on stream I streamed it a few years ago now, I think. I think that I didn't get super invested in the story as much as I would have liked. I think I will return to it eventually, and kind of complete it, because I don't think I even got to the point where May sees the ghost
Gotcha.
kidnapping. But I love the writing of the game. The art style is works so well. I played a demo of a game recently that also had animal characters, and they so kept on bringing up the fact that they were the animal that they were, and I kind of I don't like that, but I feel like with Night in the Woods, they don't
do that.
Right. It's very much, it's just this is what it is. This is the environment that we're in, and we're Gucci. This is our world, and I love that. And the art style is beautiful. The writing is excellent, and I even I didn't love there's some mini games that are in the game a little at times that I didn't necessarily love, but
I would say the minigame parts are probably the worst.
Yeah.
Worst part of the game, where you have to do some little side things. The one exception being I love the Guitar Hero.
Yeah, that was not my thing, but I get it. I understand. I think though that adds some variety to the game. It's not just it's a game that you're not doing just the same thing over and over. It kind of changes literally from day to day. It's part life sim in a little bit, where it is
a little bit, yeah.
Where you start a new day, you do whatever you gotta do, and then you go to sleep, and it is a little bit of that, even though it's also a linear plot, at the same time, that has a beginning and end.
Going off of that, there's also a lot of commentary on keeping friendships and keeping relationships, whether it's with your in-game parents, whether it's with friends you've known for forever, whether it's if it's with complete strangers, that you get to know them better if you put in that work every day to get to know them, and you will only get that alternate dialogue, alternate scene with those characters if you put in that work.
Definitely.
Which is kind of like an analogy to real life. You're only going to be friends with people if you put in the work to be friends with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think out of all the games that we're talking about today, this is one of the ones that aesthetically really interests me. You kind of lose it a little bit because of this being an audio medium, but just the way that this game looks and its aesthetic overall really, really interests me.
Yeah, and I really recommend it if you want a really nice story. I will say content warning for just talking about mental illness and anxiety and depression that comes from it, because it does get heavy at some points.
Definitely.
But it is a phenomenal game, and I think that the writers did a phenomenal job with it.
I just try. Excuse me. Maybe you should bring up the update that came out with it. That came out a while after.
The Weird Autumn one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they updated the game. They didn't do. They added some stuff. It was mainly some ability to redo some things, made some like quality of life improvements. That's kind of just like standard in the game. Was there something specific you were referring to with it?
The Longest Night. Or
Longest Night. Yeah. They added the Kickstarter bonuses to it. So there was like a preview that was sent out to Kickstarter people where it was May at college figuring out that she had to go home, and then there's the Longest Night, which was Longest Night is their version of Christmas. Happens on the winter solstice, so Longest Night. That's just a cool extra mini game to do.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's-
Any other thoughts from the group on Night in the Woods?
Play it, please.
Play it. It is constantly in one of my top 10 games of all time. Every once in a while, it jumps up to top 3, depending on how recently it's been since I played it.
Just and Gabe, like, just being someone who has played the whole thing, just like is what kind of what's your favorite part about it? Just out of curiosity.
The music.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It is really pretty music.
It has some really solid soundtrack. I haven't gotten to experience it in its entirety, but from what I did, it definitely has a good one.
One of my favorite songs is it plays on like a regular day when you're exploring Possum Springs. It's called Back to the Holler. It just gives you such a warm feeling of like being home, but like it also has like this underlying tension to it. It's just so good.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Do they say in the game, like, so I know that you said that it was they don't explicitly give, like, it's not like real place names or anything, but when they say the holler, like, aren't there hollers in like Kentucky or something? Like, is it meant to be like that it's a real, like,
It is like rural Appalachia.
okay, perfect.
Specifically Pennsylvania, because that's where the creators are from.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, but that's
that's all in the same immediate area. I get yelled at if I say that the Midwest.
Yeah,
is everything.
Western Pennsylvania, Kentucky. That is like Appalachia.
Yeah.
Appalachian Mountains.
Perfect. That's what I thought. Very cool. Thank you.
Okay, we have reached the halfway point here, and that means it's time to give this podcast.
Boom, bitch.
Yeah.
All
here
right.
we go.
Okay. So I am going to send. I will be humble and say that I am a genius, and I've been looking through a lot of mobile games and thinking long and hard about, you know, when you go through the App Store, you could tell that like app stores don't know how to organize mobile games, because there's so many different, like, quote unquote, like, genres of like mobile games. But I have essentially not only divided all mobile games into 4 distinct groups, but you yourself, in a Hogwarts style choosing, will be finding out which house of mobile gaming you belong to.
I am so excited.
Ooh.
So I've just sent the link to the quiz. I will also be taking the quiz again.
Please send it. Yeah, I could share this in the podcast description as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll read through the questions, and it's not just like at the end it'll just say what house you're in. It'll show what percentage of each house. So we can have whoever read out what, and we'll go through the questions together, and you guys can answer. Some are pretty basic, and some are a little more complicated. Like, we start out pretty easy. What was your favorite school subject among these?
Mine was science.
History.
Yeah, we got math, science, history, and English here.
Unraveling the mystery.
Oh wait, are we taking it,
Sorry.
or are we? I'm sorry, I started taking it before I listened to all the instructions.
Yeah, we're
We're gonna walk through it together, but it's okay if you're a little ahead.
Okay. I'm like almost done, so I'll just all right.
I think
Sorry.
I think you could bounce. Oh, maybe not. I was gonna like, maybe you could click up the question number, but it looks.
That's
like
okay.
you
I'll
can't.
just listen to reading it. It's fine.
Okay,
No,
cool.
it's okay. We were just gonna read through it together.
You do that.
When met with a problem, you tend to Follow my gut instinct. Take the time to think before you act. Follow my emotions, or think of a logical solution.
God, it's
Logical solution.
follow my fucking emotions. I wish that was not the case, but that's usually what happens.
Gut instinct.
Take time to think.
I take time
before
to
I
think
act.
about it. Yep, me
Alright.
too, Gabe. Me too.
After school, what were you most likely to do as a kid? There's a few ones here: robotics, sport ball, video game club, chess club, honor society / class council, drama club, film club, or I'd rather get my homework out of the way, thank you.
Drama.
Yeah, back then
Only-
it was drama.
Only because of Total Drama Island.
Video game club.
Same.
I'm so sad that didn't exist.
We had a video game club at my high school.
I would
Yeah, we
definitely
were
just
Catholic.
go.
Nerds.
Catholics don't play video games.
What do you say, Kels?
Oh, I just said I always went straight home. I was like, extracurriculars for who?
That was
I
me
mean,
in middle school until like high school.
I would have gone to video game club, but I'm gonna stay true to what my kid instincts were, which was drama club.
Okay. What Dungeons and Dragons stat is your highest? Be honest, LOL. Dexterity, wisdom, intelligence, or charisma?
Out of these, mine is intelligence.
Mine is wisdom.
Y'all gonna
Intelligence.
help me with this one because I don't know.
Okay,
I
so
can't- I
if
can't read
I were to
myself.
throw a kiwi at your head, would you be able to catch it?
Probably not.
No, he
Okay,
wouldn't.
so
what,
it's
he
not
what do
wouldn't.
you
dexterity.
think, what do you think my highest one is?
Yours is.
What's the
I-
difference?
I would say charisma for you, Walsh.
Dexterity, just how quick. Wisdom is like, should I do this? Well, intelligence is like, oh, the textbook answer is this. And then charisma, it's charisma.
So I feel like I might have answered this incorrectly. So in hearing everybody's response, I was like, yeah, I always play like I would want to always play or I associate with an intelligent character. So that's why I chose intelligent. Is that the right way to answer this? So
It was more like you as a person. Like, what would your, if you were a character, like, if you were on a character sheet, what would your highest stat be?
okay, well, at the risk of sounding really egotistical, I would still pick intelligence. But
I would think of intelligence for you too.
I also picked that, so it's fine.
You're a bunch of
I'll go with
nerds.
Dexterity.
what are you going with, Anthony?
Dexterity.
I feel
Sure.
like charisma, but I could be wrong for me. I don't know.
No,
Alright,
I think
Kels,
that's
what
good
am
for
I?
you, Chris.
Wasn't
Yeah, that's good.
wait, is this the one where heart is one of the options? What's the fourth option?
The next one, that's the next one. That's the next question.
Okay, what were the four options for this one? Because I finished.
The D&D
Dexterity.
one was dexterity, charisma, wisdom, and intelligence.
Kelsey gets a quiz, and she just.
So you're right.
Chris,
You have intelligence.
Chris, I feel apparently not. I don't follow instructions. I think that Chris, you would probably be charisma or intelligence.
Okay, I picked charisma.
Okay, good.
That's why I would like to think is more of my stat, but
All right, next question. In a 4-character dynamic, where do you often fall? The leader, the lancer, the nerd, or the heart?
Define the
See,
heart.
The heart is I would say in this 4-character dynamic is usually either the comic relief or is more the kind of emotional anchor of the group.
God, I feel like it could be 3 of these.
I'm the heart.
This
definitely.
one though, I did allow some questions where you can pick more than one answer. This is one of them.
Oh,
Okay,
oops.
because I feel like I switch between the leader and the nerd depending on which group I'm in.
Matt Walsh,
that's
not
fair,
Walsh.
depending on what
Matt. I feel like Matt, you and I are in some ways very similar, and I feel like I would have anticipated you picking a leader.
Yeah, I kind of I default as one a lot.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of seen myself that way, and then obviously the nerd.
Well, I think that's a given for all of us. Do you see what we're doing right
Yes. True, we are doing a video game.
now? Like,
I've put for myself the leader and the heart.
Oh, can we choose 2?
That one you can.
Yeah, so this is why I need to, like, read instructions. Does anybody remember, really quick aside, and I'm sorry, but does anybody remember the thing that they gave you in school where it was like if you didn't read all the instructions through all the way, you got to the end of it, and it was like, if you read all the way through, then you just put your name in the corner and turn it in. And then, meanwhile, you look like an idiot because you scribbled over the whole thing because you didn't read all the way to the end.
You scribbled over the whole thing, or you stood up and made frog noises. Or
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me. I got to the end, and I'd get mad.
I hated that. My teacher handed one out, and it was an instructions test, and she saw that I started answering it before she said it, so she collected all of them. And I'm like, no, this was so much fun. I wanted to do it.
I think for me, I'm gonna do the nerd in the heart, but I also had the leader in mind as well. But the nerd in the heart, I think, fits.
Okay. All right, next question is, how do you react to stress? Choose the closest. I get fidgety, I might shake my leg or click a pen. I make lists to keep my thoughts organized and not feel as overwhelmed. I go from one thought to another in succession, often thinking about many different ways things can go, or my feelings will build up and sometimes get the best of me.
One thought to another in succession.
I'm going to go with the lists.
So this one made me overwhelmed because I feel like I try to do all of these things at once when I'm stressed out.
My feelings will build up and get the best of me.
That's what I picked.
That is bad as mine as well.
All right, choose a soccer position. Defense,
Goalie.
Offense/midfield, goalie, or the coach.
The goalie doesn't have to run anywhere.
My position when I was in soccer was defense, but I would absolutely be the coach.
All right, in your free time, you think about life and stuff, play games and seek entertainment, find ways to keep your mind engaged and educated, or spend time with friends.
Geez, I'm two of these.
Spend time with friends.
I play games and entertainment. Not the secondary. The secondary is, of course, spending time with friends. But
yeah, I'll do play games. That's the main thing.
What kind of movie do you prefer? A slower pace is fine. The build-up is worth it. Can we skip the exposition? A mystery with a problem to solve is satisfying. Or something unpredictable and new.
I'll go unpredictable. I like to be surprised.
I love slow build-up movies, especially when they actually build up to something.
Mm-hmm.
I accidentally closed out of the quiz, so I have to take it over.
And this is the last question. What's the motto? Knowing is half the battle. Wink. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. Actions speak louder than words. Or we're all just stories yet to be told.
We're all just stories yet to be told.
I was thinking that too. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, interesting.
Knowing is half the battle.
Okay, so we have our 4 different houses here. We have story, strategy, puzzle, and skill. Where did you guys fall?
I was House of Strategy.
I was also House of Strategy.
Where they from?
House of Skill.
What's your percentages, curiously?
House of Story for me.
I had 40 on strategy.
Yeah, I have 40 on story.
I have 60 on skill. Which is not surprising.
Wow.
I like how I was just like, and that's not surprising. Like, it was closed mouth.
Yeah, I believe I was the closest with strategy. So somebody who got strategy, do you guys want to read out what strategy games?
Yeah, I'll read it out. So, welcome to the House of Strategy Games. You are the one to take time before acting, since you understand both risk and reward. You consider the consequences and try to be aware and react to the people and world around you. You can be cautious, but your sense of thinking ahead causes others to follow close behind. You might find yourself overthinking in some situations, but when you're able to use your natural insight, you can get past anything. There are many games that belong in the House of Strategy Games. Many utilize preparation, as planning is essential to strategy. These include tower defense games, war games, and card games. Some examples by name would be Plants vs. Zombies, hell yes.
Yes.
Bloons Tower Defense, Among Us, Clash of Clans, chess, Yu-Gi-Oh, and yes, farming games. Strategy games are about preparation, planning, and being 2 steps ahead.
All right.
See, it's funny because I would say that strategy fits me the best, but I play puzzle mobile games more than any other type.
Yeah, no, I definitely think, you always want like a nice balance, which is why, I don't think anybody's 100% one. But what percentage were you on strategy?
No, and that's the thing. I'm 40% strategy, 30 puzzle, 30 story, and then 10 skill. So like 3 of them, I'm essentially even.
Yeah. And I didn't hear Kelsey, Anthony's, and Chris's results. Where did you guys fall?
I was story.
Okay. Do you want to read out the story one?
Yeah, sure. You're one for the finer things. You don't mind taking things slow. You put your heart and passion into the things you do, and your emotions play a key part in your life. You think about your friends, family, and life, and the story it took to bring this all together. Maybe you're an artist, a writer, or just a people watcher, but to you, a good story is where it's at. There are many games that belong to the House of Story. These often include adventure-type games, role-playing games, and even dating sims. Your games might cost a wee bit more than the other houses, but that's because of the amount of thought and work that goes into telling expansive stories. Examples include Dream Daddy, Old Man's Journey, and Limbo. However, this also includes episode-type games, like the Kim Kardashian game, the Demi Lovato game, and many, many more. I don't know any of those. Your house is home to the best of the best award-winning games and the worst of the worst pay 15 gems not to fire in your boyfriend's face games. But hey, doesn't every story have its highs and lows? Story games are about emotion, patience, and heart.
Hate that description.
I got the same exact
Just
results.
kidding. Love it.
I'm 80% story.
Holy
never
shit.
mind.
Yeah.
I was 40% story, but those aren't the games I'm good at. Like, I'm really good at strategy games, but that was my... but I also got 40 story, 30 puzzle, 30 strategy, so it was a mix.
Kelsey,
Are
do you
we
want
the
to...
same person, Kelsey?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I just...
Kelsey, do you want to share the
Chris,
puzzle one?
I thought Chris and I were the same person for a while, but it might be you and me now.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. Sure. Puzzle, you said?
Yeah.
Welcome to the House of Puzzle Games. You like to keep your mind sharp and problem-solving skills sharper. Every problem has a solution. Just haven't found it yet. You aren't one to give up easily, and with your intelligence it's easy to see why. There are many games that belong to the House of Puzzle Games. Simple but thought-provoking games such as Tetris, Bejeweled, Candy Crush, Cut the Rope, and Solitaire are all proud puzzle games. Puzzle games also include trivia, word, and brain games. Puzzles are about having a problem presented and taking it head on.
Nice. And then, go ahead, Anthony. Do you want to share about your skill? Where did you fall on skill?
Skill, I had a 60% match.
Wow.
And then I had 30% for story, 20% for strategy, and 0% for puzzle, which is honestly very accurate. I do not enjoy puzzle games.
Except for Portal. You like Portal, though.
Oh, I loved Portal, and I love playing Sudoku. But
Hell yeah.
generally, when I see a puzzle game on the App Store, I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Skill. Welcome to the House of Skill Games. You're one for action. You've sculpted your talents to be precise, and you're ready to share them. Need be. Precision, timing, and endurance is key. You might find yourself a bit fidgety or antsy from time to time, which, as an aside, is very accurate. But skill games are perfect to capture that rush of speed and adrenaline you're looking for. There are many games that belong to the House of Skill. In fact, some of the earliest mobile games were skill-based. Skill games often rely on precise controls and an understanding of the gimmick of the game. Endless runners, tapping games, racing games, battle royales, and most arcade games find their home here. So while you have classics like Doodle Jump, Temple Run, Subway Surfer, new age quick response time games similar to Flappy Bird find themselves here too. Skill games are about speed, talent, and practice.
Awesome. Yeah, I fell 50% strategy, 30% story, and then 10% puzzle and skill. I think Skylar was one of the few that actually tied between two houses, tying between both skill and story at 40%. But yeah, so now you guys, fuck Hogwarts houses. Now you guys know what house of mobile games you fall into.
I'm a Hufflepuff story.
So what color is each house? This is very important.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah, this is important to me.
This I have not decided, but if I were to... I might have to come back to you guys with that.
Okay.
To me, I feel like strategy is a blue. You know what? No, I need to think of it like if I were to look at like a color wheel. But to me, strategy is like a blue. Story is like a purple. Puzzle is like a orange, and then skill would be like a red. But that's my initial gut instinct. In terms of colors for the houses. But we can of course play with that. I think the different mobile game houses should discuss among themselves what colors they should most like to be represented by.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that has been wonderful, and I thank you so much, Matt, for creating this. It's kind of surreal. How long did you work on this?
It wasn't too long. I found like a free quiz making thing, and they were pretty easy to work with. So I mean, I guess to plug them, like you can, I think using the same quizmaker.com website that this is on, you can make your own quizzes too.
This isn't sponsored.
No, not sponsored.
Not sponsored. No.
But if you guys do take the quiz at home, definitely share what house you guys are in. Because I would absolutely love to see that and what kind of colors you think that each house should be represented by. Those are just my gut instincts, but then again, which reminds me more of like the kind of gut instinct colors that like you give to each of your like school classes for your folders in
Math is red.
No, math is blue. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Who said that?
Matt said math is red.
Math is red.
Science is green. History
Science
is yellow.
is green.
Yes.
Math is
English
either
is-
blue or
English is
red.
blue.
I can agree.
I
Because
feel like
that's red,
'cause it was my
English
least
was red,
favorite.
math was
Yeah.
blue. That's what I.
All right, I'm not gonna open this like Pandora's box.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's close this.
All right. Moving forward, back into the games here. It is time for Matt. So for whatever reason, Walsh did not want to disclose his game to us prior to the podcast. And so now is your chance, Walsh.
So
what game are you talking about?
Yeah, initially, it was because it's not a traditional scary game, but I mean, in retrospect, that doesn't matter too much. But I think the fact that this game has touched so many people, Plants vs. Zombies,
Hell
is
yeah.
really
Yes.
such a staple of not only like mobile games, but a lot of on a lot of other systems as well. I've played the game. I think I first played the game on the Xbox, which was a weird one. I've played it on the Xbox. I've played it on DS. I've played it on mobile before, and then before recording this, I downloaded it again for mobile. Of course, for those who have not played Plants vs. Zombies, including people in this call, essentially the idea is that you have to defend your lawn from zombies, and there are different plants to collect that you throw out onto the lawn while waiting on these zombies essentially to show up. So in the house of mobile games, it is under strategy games because you are preparing for onslaughts of enemies, but it is incredibly creative in the different ways that these plants are designed, the way that they attack, the way that these zombies are designed. There are a multitude of different types of enemies, while also having like a very fun kind of gameplay, while also switching it up between the different environments. The only caveat or maybe thing that I don't like about it is maybe the kind of mobile, more free to play kind of way it is now. Because Plants vs. Zombies definitely put PopCap, I think, a lot more in the mainstream, while they've had a lot of success with things like Peggled and Bejeweled. It was really Plants vs. Zombies that blew them up, but they were bought by EA at some point, and I think that's definitely brought them a bit downhill. You could especially see it in coming back to the mobile game. A lot of things are very overpriced for the amount of like money that you gain. But it does have, while there is a story mode, there is a lot of replay value. It's very addicting in its gameplay, and it's just overall like such a fun game. What are your guys' kind of histories with the game for those who have played it?
I played the mobile version, and it is fantastic. I really love it. And just spent hours playing it. It was like I had it on my my iPod Touch before I had a smartphone, and it kept me busy on like a lot of long car rides a few times. And I really love the strategy aspect to it. I think the art style is amazing. The character of Crazy Dave is fantastic. Just an all around solid game.
No, it's weird because it has become like a staple of that kind of strategy game, but it's I don't know, but it's pretty old too at this point. But the fact that it's like stuck around, I think I've played the second one, which was okay. I'd never finished it, and the spin-off like superhero card game, which is kind of nothing to do with it but shares aesthetics from it, is weirdly addicting and fun in its own way. But I digress. I have not played the third one, which apparently has come out, but I have heard very bad things. So I was very curious about coming back to the original one, and when playing the original one, you can really feel the amount of heart and thought that goes into a lot of the designs and the just the gameplay and the writing of it. There is an almanac you get at one point where you can keep track of all of the different plants, all of the different zombie enemies that you've encountered so far, and each of them have their own little descriptions that are just like kind of filled with personality. And when you beat the game, it really does, it really is a treat. And yeah, it's great.
My experience with the game, my dad got it for the PC around the time when it first came out, and both him and we just I completed all the challenges. However, my dad, he maxed out the Zen Garden, which is like, why? Because like he actually like strategically knew how to like earn the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time, and like that's how he got the gold sunflower trophy. And I don't know, I just thought that was really cool.
Wow, your dad's like a min-max speedrunner. That's awesome.
Oh, this took over the place of several months, but
there's this myriad of mini games that you're able to play and explore. Like, for example, there's one where, there's different zombies that instead of being normal zombies have the heads of like different plants. So now you're also fighting moving plants. Or where another one called like iZombie, where there's already like cardboard cutout plants set up, and you have to strategically place the right zombies in order to fight the opposite way. And then of course, like there was the Zen Garden that was mentioned, where you can collect the actual plants in the game and grow them, and see which ones you get. That I know on like Xbox, I eventually filled up almost entirely. And then there's of course like endless waves that you can do. But I think, not it's not necessarily too anxiety inducing, which a lot of like waves of enemy games can sometimes feel. But for me, it can almost be relaxing in the way that not only, you have your order in which you do things. You set this plant up initially, you now are ready for this kind of zombie. You set up your field of play. I always find it has to be symmetrical, or else like I am uncomfortable most of the time. When setting up the plant field, even if it's like zigzag, it just has to be nice and even between like the 5 or 6 lanes that you're given. But it's also just the way that they really focus on a really fun type of gameplay and constantly keep mixing it and kind of just changing it up in order to keep it fresh throughout the entire game.
Yeah, this is a game that I have basically zero experience with. The closest experience I've ever gotten to playing Plants vs Zombies was having one of the Plants vs Zombies characters in our BBBFL league. That's pretty much the closest I've come.
Spadow.
But
yeah,
now,
that's a
Spadow.
character from the spin-off card game, which is weirdly fun and addicting.
Okay,
But
go ahead.
but yeah, with that one, they took the like iconic plants from the game, turned them into like superheroes. I think it weirdly felt like a weird way to cash in on like, all of the superhero things
Hearthstone.
going on, things like that. But then it just became a very fun game, which was kind of interesting. I suggest that game too, but if you haven't played Plants vs. Zombies, the mobile game is not only free, and while I have talked about how it is annoying that you have to pay for things like the mini games, and some additional stuff, you can go through the entire story completely uninterrupted. So you can basically experience, at its core, what Plants vs. Zombies is without paying a penny. I think as a mobile game, it is fitting too, because you can very easily just click, drag, tap, and it's. And I think those are the only things you can do on a screen. But no, it's well. It does well as a mobile game. It was just like a lot of the free to play stuff or the advertisements that can get in the way. But you just shut off your Wi-Fi and.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say though too is that Plants vs Zombies was iconic during the middle school, high school days. Like everyone that I knew was playing it in some capacity. I just never got on board with it, but I knew it because of the people that I was around, because they played it a ton. So. That it is just known as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, mobile game of all time, and it deserves a ton of credit for what it has built and the brand that it's built, even though it's not as talked about today. Any other thoughts from everyone about Plants vs Zombies?
I never liked it.
Fair. All right. Moving forward here, Anthony, you are up with Dishonored.
Here we go. So I absolutely love Dishonored. This game released back in, I think it was 2012 or 2013. And honestly, it holds up just as well today as when it was released. So this is a first-person stealth action game. The plot is essentially that you're married to the empress of a industrial town, and one day she gets killed, and you're framed for the murder. So you're put on trial, your name is dragged through the streets, and something happens where a supernatural entity kind of reaches out to you and picks you and grants you this power, interested in what you're going to do with it. And as you go through the game, you realize that this city is in the midst of a plague. And it's a city that's kind of like eating itself from the inside out. While you're playing through, there are people afflicted with the plague who are sick and dying. There are roving swarms of plague rats who devour the corpses of the plague victims that were just dumped in the sewer because they don't have anywhere to put them. You have corrupt guards and vicious guard dogs, and kind of playing on how whale oil was a commodity in Victorian England. The idea of whales, their oil fuels the city and all of this wondrous technology. And the city literally just keeps slaughtering them. And whale bones are an occult item that holds like memories and occult powers. And you can kind of hear their whispers as you go through the levels. so it very much plays with these interesting horror concepts, and kind of like that meme where it's like, call an ambulance, but not for me. Um, you are the scary force in this game. I shared an image to the chat. That's the player character. He wears this very rough, scary, almost like metallic skull mask. And that's the last thing that many people in the game see. Because you have the ability to teleport, to hide in the shadows, to possess animals and pop out of them as a human seconds later. You can possess people and make them jump to their death or kill their comrades. It's a very brutal game, and there's many brutal ways to kill people. You can even summon a swarm of plague rats that devour people in seconds and hide their bodies so that other people don't see them. So the most interesting part of this game actually is player agency. I kind of talked about how the supernatural being that contacts you in the beginning of the game kind of gives you these powers, and he's interested to see what you do with them. And that's really what the game is about. When I first got the game, I toyed around with all these various ways of killing people, like, oh yeah, when I stab a person, they turn to ash, and then I can teleport around and be very violent, or summon plague rats, and all these things. And the mission structure of the game is very much about identifying and picking out and assassinating people that have wronged you and framed you and dishonored you. But recently, I felt kind of burnt out about like mortality, and how violent some games can be. And I wanted a game where I could actually have the power to make things be okay. And this is the game that I picked. And although it seems a little strange at first, the entire game can be played without killing anybody. And in fact, that's what I did. I played every objective by carefully exploring the levels, finding out alternative paths to slaughtering people. I never raised my sword against anybody. I never exploded anybody. And I always found another way. And there's some very interesting ways to do that. For example, there's a leader of a religious faction. You could just find him and slit his throat. You could poison him. Or you could read a book in the religious archives that talks about the brand of the heretic. And you could lead him or knock him out and literally brand him as somebody who has wronged the church in such a way that they excommunicate him. And he's no longer in power, and you don't have to worry about him. And you didn't kill anybody to do that. And the game is full of all these really interesting ways to still get the job done without killing people, if you just try.
That kicks ass.
Yeah. And the first time I played the game, I didn't realize that the more that you kill people, the faster the rat plague accelerates and the faster the city implodes. Something you see is that if you kill people, there's more food for rats, and more rats are made. And when there are more rats, there are more people who become these walking hosts for plague insects. And the entire game just becomes very difficult for you because you're fighting against a kind of enemy that you're not prepared for. But when you play it peacefully and less people die, the city doesn't devolve as fast. And not only does it make the game easier, but the final mission was entirely different. The first time I played through it, it was this giant island fortress that was kind of like in the middle of a rough storm with lightning and rain, and the ending was incredibly dark. But when I played through it this time, it was a sunny day without any clouds in the sky. And when I got to the ending, the main enemy was like, you know what? I give up. What you're looking for is in that room. That's it. And so I really got to experience kind of a reward for taking the more difficult way and the more peaceful way. And something about that just felt really rewarding and really almost gratifying in a way for a game that recognizes that violent tendencies aren't always ultimately what you want to do and ultimately the best option.
Yeah, there's going to be a theme for the next few games on that front. But I will say this, like, this was the one game I think I knew the least about going into it. I only really knew Dishonored by name alone. Having you talk about it like you'd have, though, I think I might be interested in playing it, just because I love games where you can choose how to approach things, when you have that agency to just be able to be like just have control over a situation a lot more, rather than how video games usually are, which is, okay, you're on a quest, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to kill everyone in your way, or you have to make sure you befriend these people, you have to go after these people, and that's it. I love that it gives you that opportunity. Is it like a linear pathing game, or is it more of like is it a little bit more open world?
So they have kind of like big levels, right? Where you go into like a certain district and there's like houses you can break into, and maybe that house has like a secret objective or a way to complete your main objective. Sometimes it's just treasure and resources that helps you unlock new upgrades or that kind of thing. So it's mostly linear. They kind of like drop you off at school and then tell you what you got to do in a way, but let you figure out how you're going to do that.
Okay, interesting. It has very Hitman vibes in that sense. You have the massive levels that you have to explore and then figure out different ways to. Well, that's a game that you're forced to kill people, but regardless.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm glad it seems like a game too that it's not you killed people and that makes you a bad person, even though this is the only path through the game.
Oh my! What game does that remind us of, ladies and gentlemen, from this year? It's The Last of Us.
I was gonna say Animal Crossing.
I was gonna say Undertale.
Oh.
Yeah. Have you not played Animal Crossing this year? Do you know how many people I've killed?
Yeah, there's too many to count. well, but no, like to that point, like Last of Us is, well, at least the latest one, and this is. I just wanted full disclosure. Haven't played the game, based off of people who I've read from that have played the game. The game is very much focused on like you are forced to kill people in certain situations, and then the game makes you feel bad for killing those people. And that and I don't know. There's something that I feel like is not right about that. Because
there's no choice.
Right. Like
we're going to talk about a game in a second where there's a choice.
Exactly. Like you.
I agree.
Like
you
if
can't. Go ahead.
I was so my thing is just like why have it like if you're going to make a game where you're just brutally killing people, let's just fucking brutally kill people and let's move on, you know? Like I really hope the FBI is not listening to this. And it's. Or, like, if you're going to make a game where you're going to think you're going to have this moral dilemma, make it so that way the characters actually have a choice in those moral dilemmas. Because otherwise, you're just making, like, you're making people, like, you're forcing players to feel a certain way. It's like, almost, like, shove them in a certain direction, instead of actually giving them the leniency to make their own choices and make them feel like, okay, I had to do this, I had to make this choice, I had to in order for me to progress in the game, I had to make this decision. I don't know. It just I go ahead, Anthony. What were you gonna say?
I agree. I think that games that try to be profound and don't give you player choice and then like rub your face in it, you can't have it both ways. And I think that kind of perfectly encapsulates why Dishonor is good. Because if you kill everybody, the game doesn't make you feel bad about it. They're like, well, this is what you want, right? Like the plague has overtaken the city. The situation's completely hopeless, and you may say like, yeah, the city killed my wife, made me a criminal for it. This is what the city deserves. This is what the city earned.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, if you play peaceful, the game is essentially like there's something beautiful in forgiveness, and you found that, and you're like, yeah, you know what, I did. So I really think that they hit the nail on the head with this one, and it's a timeless game.
This is gonna sound out of left field, but can you? So okay, I don't know much about this game. In one hand, Scary Man has weapon, and in other hand, he has magic. And I think I remember seeing where he like controlled rats, and
Yes.
I think that's why I got confused for Bioshock with the bees.
So, yes, you can control rats in this game. You can make a swarm of rats appear out of nowhere. You can also possess animals. So, like, they have certain pathways through levels. You can also possess fish. And it's a way of, like, sneaking into houses and all these areas. Not only does it explain why the plague is so prevalent, because rats are everywhere, but it also kind of serves as a gameplay device for you getting to the places you need to get to sneakily.
Any other thoughts on Dishonored?
Deeper than I expected. Honestly.
Yeah, no, I have a newfound appreciation for it. Are you worried because it's a Bethesda game that it's gonna be only on the Xbox?
Oh my god.
You just bring in the
Never do that voice again, please.
It's my gamer analyst voice. What are you talking about? Anyways, well, I'm glad that we get to close this out with a game. I know that, Matt, you haven't played it, but you've watched this game. I'm glad that we have a game where every single person in this call has at least played it or watched an entire playthrough of it. I don't know. I don't even know where to start with Undertale, because this is maybe one of the greatest achievements in gaming, especially in the indie gaming sphere, that we've ever seen. And it is this pixelated, like, fun little game of like that it just seems so innocent on the surface, but just goes so deep. It was created by Toby Fox, who is extremely talented, because he basically created every aspect of this game with like a little help here and there from like Temi Chang and I think maybe like one or two other people. But essentially, Undertale is a role play game, RPG, and it is a game in which you are a human that falls into that is just walking around one day and falls into a hole, or I guess it's maybe like seeking the hole. I don't know. I forget what the context is. Kind of like that you trip and fall into a hole where monsters have been living for some time, because there used to be a war between humans and monsters, and ultimately monsters lost that fight because they were weaker than humans, and they were blocked behind a seemingly impenetrable wall. But you made your way into this monster world, and your goal throughout the game is seemingly to just escape. But along the way, you get to meet these characters, and throughout the journey, you have a choice of whether or not you spare a monster or kill them. And I guess the canonical route, if we want to call it that, would be to spare them, which basically involves like when you're in battle, which is like a turn-based battle system in which you have options to interact with the monster and kind of get to figure out like what is it that they actually need, or just what can get them to go away instead of actually inflicting harm on them. And throughout you learn the story. You learn the story of all these monsters, Toriel in the early game, and then you move on and you meet Sands and Papyrus, two wacky skeletons, and you go even further on throughout the game, and the whole time you're being hunted down. Or throughout a good chunk of the game, you are being hunted down because you are a human, and the monsters need souls in order to break through the wall and escape their prison that they've been in. But despite that, the monsters around you begin to, if as long as you're sparing them, of course, begin to have, begin to become good friends with you, and it's just. It's so hard to really encapsulate like all of Undertale and what it is and the story of it, but from the script, which is insanely good, and the music, the ability to have the choice, like with Dishonored, much different way, but like where you choose to spare or kill people and you choose your path. And, ultimately, through all these beautiful worlds and really well-designed characters, you get to go on a very emotional journey through the underground. And it is one of the most, rewarding experiences I've ever had in a game. It made me feel things I think I've never felt before about video games. I think it was probably the first video game I ever, really openly wept to. Because of how beautiful it is, especially if you do go with the pacifist route and do make it to the end with pacifists. There's so much I want to say more, but I do want to give the floor to everyone else here who I know also have their own connections to the game.
As the resident musician, I'll talk about the music.
Sure, go.
So I can't think of a more solid collection of songs that just perfectly encapsulate the video game that they're from, and also just are so expertly crafted on their own from any video game. That includes Mario Galaxy. That includes other just top video game soundtracks. This soundtrack is incredible. Each song fits the scene or the battle that's from. The use of motifs to accompany each character is amazing, and it all comes to such an amazing climax at the final boss fight, with Hopes and Dreams being my personal favorite during the end pacifist route, just because it feels final. It feels like everything you've done before has meant something to get to this point, and like you said, it is so rewarding, so satisfying, and you put in the work to be a good person to get here.
Yeah, the game is really the music almost becomes like its own character throughout the game. It's because of how much it fits in with all the scenarios that you're in. I don't think there's a single song that is very oh well, that's weird for this situation. Every single song fits. And I love that the game is so reliant, again, and this is a lot focused on the pacifist run, but that's just because it is what many people see as the true path of the game. It's so much more than just facing these monsters and figuring out what to do in a battle system. It is also interacting with them and going through storylines with them and having them all try to figure out their own way in life. You get to learn so much about them as well.
I think this is one of the best games I've ever played. Everything about it is so expertly crafted. everything kind of comes full circle and just encapsulates such an amazing, heartfelt, handcrafted, beautiful experience. I think this game would be easily enjoyed by anybody and everybody.
100%.
If while I agree, this is one of my favorite games. There is one bit of criticism that I do have.
Sure.
The visuals.
The what?
Visuals. The game is
Like, you don't like the style of the game, or you don't like...
while in battle, the sprites are amazing. It's just on the overworld, everything's kind of ugly.
Like, you don't like the color schemes, or do you have a problem with, like, the pixelation? Like,
It's just the general art style for the characters. It just makes them.
okay.
Like, I don't want to say they look off model because I'm not the fucking the art director, but like
Sure.
compared to their in battle sprites, a lot of them are just way different.
No, I completely understand that. I think there is like a slightly startling, like when you go from just talking to someone and then jumping into battle, like a quote unquote battle at least, like it is like oh man, there's seems to be a lot more personality here than in with the characters. I agree. I think that's a fair criticism.
I
For
also
me,
love.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think for me, I don't have necessarily a criticism of the game, but I think my own hesitation comes much more in the way in which it has become so much more, I guess, so popular and so mainstream that from the outside, and I guess I consider myself someone who was a little later to playing Undertale. I wasn't. It was something that I Chris sat me down and we played through it. And while it's so
it was
much
an
fun,
intervention.
yeah, it's such a good game. But from the outside, as most popular things do, it can become like, oh, I'm sick of people talking about it, or I'm sick of people joking about like, Sans from Undertale, like just this overall kind of joking atmosphere to it.
Sure.
And I wish that I wish the culture around it could be a lot more, I guess, more kind of like wholesome and fun in the way in which the game kind of presents itself. I mean, there are, of course, horror elements and battle elements, and, of course, like the entire theme of choice. But I wish that the audience would be able to reflect that kind of openness that the game carries as well. But I think that is much more on the fans of the game rather than the game itself. And I think there's also like a level into which like how much can you like say about the game out loud that doesn't that's not going to affect how somebody goes on to play it.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think part of that fandom thing, and I agree that the fandom became exhausting at a point. I think we're at the time now where all of the quote unquote cringe stuff is gone, and cringe culture is bullshit anyway. But that we can now just appreciate the game as the game again, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's also just anything that's going to get widespread attention, and especially widespread internet attention, where there are a lot of teenagers who their brains are not fully developed and they don't have filters. So a lot of that comes through online in terms of content and opinions that are made.
Right. And to that point, like I think the other day I saw someone, one of the streamers that I follow said, hey, I'm thinking about a game that I haven't played that I want to play on stream. It's between this game and Undertale. Which one would you guys like to see? And another streamer that I follow commented, and I think this is it made me feel sad because he was like, I would play Undertale on your own time because in a stream format it might bring the wrong audience. And I think part of the reason for that is that when and I saw this when Undertale was really first reaching its peak, and this was after I played it, people were very people really wanted streamers to play it a certain way. People really love the pacifist true ending, and that's, I agree. That's how I played the game. I don't think I'll ever touch the genocide run, which is where you just kill everyone. But at the same time, I think that's something for people that is the person's choice. That's the beauty of having a game where you have a choice, and I think that's where the toxicity of the fan base kind of gets to, where you have to play the game a certain way, or you know you're not going to get
to play the game at all.
Yeah, like you didn't get the full experience, which is I as much as I would love to have someone experience the game how I experienced it, I'm never gonna go in there and it's not right for me to go into someone playing a game and be like, "Oh, you didn't do this choice right, or you should not have killed this person. You should have just kept going." Like, there is a toxicity around the game that is a lot, but I think what makes up for it is having been able to experience the game and taking away what I did from it kind of made that up in my eyes.
While I'm not defending toxicity, I kind of understand it in the fact that this would be like if some people could play Animal Crossing by murdering every animal in their town. Like, if you play the game the pacifist route, you become very attached because every character has such developed personalization. Like Vegetoid. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? It's like a carrot monster that, like...
Onion
No,
Sand?
it's got like a jack-o'-lantern kind of face.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
that one, yeah.
It's a monster that literally just wants you to eat your vegetables, and after you do that, it's like friends with you. Like,
And there's
when...
there's another one, Washua, wants you to wash your hands.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Wash your hands.
Now, the one criticism I do have about Undertale, even though overall I think it's a masterpiece, is that the story kind of like snowballs to the point where I have no idea what's truly going on at the end.
Okay, I did want to bring that up, yeah, because, like, for me, my first playthrough, when I finished the game, I had no idea what the fuck to say. You could, like, I go on my fucking YouTube channel, like, if you watch the ending, that last episode, I literally have no idea what the hell happened. And I'm like, and I go back there, I'm just like, man, why did I not see that before? But I think Undertale, it definitely has, like, it speeds up at the end all of a sudden and throws so much at you. Granted, I also neglected to read, like, almost all the signs that I should have in that, like, in like the whatever the secret lab or whatever it was, that leads up to that point. But yeah, that was my experience.
I do agree. I think the pacing can sometimes be a little bit weird. Like, for me, like, I'm not complaining about the character itself, but I feel like the Metaton things didn't have to go as long as they did. And
That was a long part of the story.
Yeah, and then without, I guess, carrying as much weight to the overall plot as it really should, you know? But I do think that it does pick up a lot more near the end, and I think that you are able to follow it if you kind of, I guess, you know, more take your time, read everything, look through it, you know? But if you're kind of just moving through it, you're like, what? Wait, what?
Oh, yeah, I get that for sure.
And then it's 2 a.m. and you're like, oh!
All right, favorite song from the game.
Okay, as much as I hate them, I love Spider Dance.
Yes.
Hopes and Dreams is mine.
Yeah, I would say the one right after Hopes and Dreams is my favorite.
Save the World.
But like, as much as the song got memed on, like, Megalovania is always a really good pick.
Megalovania kicks fucking ass.
Actually, it's the one that right after Save the World, his song.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
short, but I I don't know. There's something really magical about that, and
Totally.
I would go into more detail, but I don't want to get too spoilery for people who haven't played it. I know that we did criticize the game a bit, but I would 100% think, like, going back and making this kind of go a little full circle here, like, there is some very existential moments of the game. Like, there's a point when you talk to a character, and I won't name him because it very much gives story spoilers. But there is a point in the game where it does said that, like, most of the game you're being tortured by this flower named Flowey, that is like this happy little flower when you first greet it, but is really like this evil flower that wants everyone's souls. And one of the a character near the end of the game, or basically at the end of the game, says that, like, there's a lot of Floweys in the world, and you just have to keep on moving, and you gotta keep on surviving. Don't kill and don't be killed. Was another phrase. Like, there's so many lessons that come away from this game of just, this life is fucking dark. It is, and we just have to keep on moving forward in it. But there is going to be the bright spots, and as long as you just keep on moving forward every single day, like, you will like there will be light. There will be light at some point, and you just have to keep on going and just have good people around you at the same time. And it's just it's so pure in that sense, in terms of in terms of being able to, like, teach you that lesson at the same time of, like, having chucklefuck skeletons nearby at the same time.
Yeah, there's a theme in a lot of these games about, like, of a lot of games we talked about today, about making choices and bonds and friendships you make with people, or just general relationships you have with them, and how they can, being with the right ones, will really impact your life in the best way.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on Undertale?
I have one.
My favorite song was the dog song.
Yes.
Okay.
I have one.
What's up, Gabe? Yes.
Your game has made a large video game culture impact if they get a playable appearance. If a character gets a playable appearance in Super Smash Brothers.
Yep.
It's absolutely insane, and Toby Fox should be proud. And I cannot wait for Deltarune Chapter 2.
I can't wait for the full Deltarune. That's gonna be so great.
Chapter 2 is making progress. There are some songs that Toby Fox released. They're so good.
I'm gonna wait until the game comes out for me to listen to them. But
Toby Fox is my video game compositional inspiration.
Yeah, he's excellent. He really is.
I think that for me, like, my reaction to the game was not what, like, Chris was very invested in me playing it and then seeing my reaction, and I don't know if it was that I was confused or I just felt like it was overhyped or something, but I didn't, like, have the initial reaction at the end that I thought, even though I thought the game overall was, like, super amazing and magical and whatever. But I think that it is mostly magical for me knowing that it was one person's creation from start to finish. Like, to me, that is, like, so compelling and incredible to have that be, like, so that, to me, that is the magic. Like, besides the actual content, the magic of it is that it is one man's heart and soul, and that it is his legacy. It is forever. Like, that is, to me, an incredible feat in and of itself.
100%. And with that, our spooktacular is over.
Ooh, what mobile witching house did you end up in? Ooh.
Tweet us at hashtag the Gaming Coop. And again, I think that this, maybe the general lesson of this episode is basically all the lessons from this video games, but also just, like, if you want to enjoy and celebrate Halloween and spookiness, like, there's so many games out there that aren't just jump scare clickbait. No offense to Resident Evil. I'm sure I know it's more than that, but you know,
It is
Real
so
scary
much
thing was the
more than
choices
that.
we make along the way.
But I you know, it's you can enjoy the spooky vibes of an Undertale and a Bioshock and a you know, dystopian nature of this well, I guess that's also Bioshock, and like Dishonored and ghost kidnapping in Night in the Woods, and darkness overcoming a world in Ori, and zombies attacking you and your garden in Plants vs Zombies. You know, like you got a lot of options out there, folks, and that's what matters, because games are awesome. And with that, thank you all so much for listening. Game on. The Gaming Coop is brought to you by Team Chaos Productions. Follow us on Twitter at The Gaming Coop, or follow our other work at Team Chaos Pods.